again. And too bad for the ones that are not back yet. So we will continue with Hartmut, which will talk about demo databases in multiple languages.
Okay, as you see, I changed the title of the talk given to what Dominic called it. He called it Welcome Database. So what I'm presenting now is an idea for a welcome or demo database in multiple languages. Actually, I like the term welcome more, and it also follows the idea about, or the discussions about the zero state, how we deliver Tryton, which is in the forum. So the aim of this database is to provide a warm welcome to new users and to help them get started and to show prospects, features they might need. So this is directly, or this absolutely goes into the direction of what Dominic presented and what Wolf has been talking about. How can we get started and make life easier? And I talked to Stefan in the break, and he said they actually have the same topic for their customers. And of course, such a database can be used as a base for the automated videos. And in fact, for me, this was the trigger which made me think about this. So how can we feel more familiar with the database we get provided? When you go to demo.tryton.org, you have a well set up system, but it's American. All the names are American, accounting is American, all prices is in US dollar, and many measurements are in this imperial units nobody uses except the Americans. So when we can provide names familiar to the users, numbers, streets, cities, numbers, identifiers, I meant, user currency the users are used to, and so on. Reports they are used to. So a invoice, when they say, give me an invoice, and it looks like they are used in their country. And what's delivered currently with Tryton is might fit Belgium, but definitely not German needs. And if I see such a report, I say, what a crap, I can't use it. Yeah, and order units of measurements, of course. I don't need inch. Pardon? Order, nee. Units of measure, it's a typo. Units of measurement. So inches and hectares and whatever. Yeah, I misspell it all the time. Yeah, and of course we can show not country, I also learned from Dominic, but community specific modules. And this actually community was the idea, because when I wanted to present this to community supported agricultures, I would have put in some special modules I prototyped for them. Yeah, and communities could be Distri-Libre, of course, and for banking we could add SEPA modules, and for invoicing we could use X-Rechnung, so X-Invoice, or the German cool thing Zugpferd, which is a Wortspiel, also playing with the words, and don't ask. And of course we could pre-configure stocking and stocking, yeah, and whatever. It's it needs. So that's what's the basic idea. And in fact, it looks, again, I created some sheets or some scripts which I will not demonstrate you. And these scripts will import so it's a semi-customized import script, as long as we don't have even better in Tryton core. So this is one for Germany, and we have a party which also has a party code already, and the others don't have, and it's just it sounds German. And I think this is English.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not American, but it's English. You have a country or a city called Supplyington, like all these names in England, and a customer lane and supplier alley and things like this. So this, of course, it's not serious, but it gives the impression, yes, this is England. We could even use different Gaelic words for Irish and so on. And this is not what I wanted to show now. This is amended or extended by some helper scripts. As I said, I will not go into the details because this is not so interesting. And basically, you have a list of a config file. You have a config file. This is a config file for Germany using the SKR03 counting chart of accounts. And you say, okay, I want additional modules. These are the data files. You can just list the data files you want to input. So, for example, if you want to have Australian or Switzerland, you just would maybe reuse the party definitions, but use others for others. You can just name them here. Okay, then you define your company, currency, blah blah blah, all this time, and more of this data. And the scripts just process this data. So basically, this is the idea of all of this. And okay, so what would be next steps? We would need to agree on a place to publish this again. Find translators and adapters, and of course automatic the creation. Okay, I totally missed. We of course would need to improve the tooling a bit, or agree on what's interesting also. So I would like to hear you maybe in the evening or at the side. What do you think about this, and how we could go into a direction like this, and what this could be useful for that. Yeah, and maybe in the future we will get country or language specific data in demo Tryton.org. Maybe an idea if we do this. And I also want to present you a newer idea of mine, which that would be a totally different approach, using an Ansible-based deployment mechanism where you basically define all your data in variables, as you can see here. And then you just call tasks to include this data. So the very first one, the basic, would include the modules and initialize the database, set up in the language, things like that. And in this one, this would define a special bank account. So this would be an idea to improve this and go away from CSV files into a better, more task-oriented approach.
Did you implement the tasks, or is it just written down?
This is actually implemented, but it's not available because the development cost needs to be refunded. Yeah. What maybe you...
How do you adapt it to the list of installed modules?
I don't understand the content of the question.
When we create data, we have to complete data regarding installed modules. If you don't have stocks, you cannot implement stock data.
Yeah, there are different mechanisms. One is you can, as you can see here, there are conditionals. This is much like Ansible, so the idea is copied from Ansible. And you can put in conditions here, and of course there is a function listing all the installed modules. This is one way, and the other way is if there is a attribute which does not exist, it will just be set. So this is is a small query language, so the question with the entries with a question mark in front are query parameters, and the others are set parameters. And if an attribute does not exist, it's just ignored.
Do you go by defining the bank account? That means the company is at an IBAN or something like this. Can you trace by the IBAN splitting into the konto and by the number of the konto or the BLZ, the banking number? Can you find the BIC and the name of the party, or is there?
I don't see any use into this in a database deployment tool.
Yeah, in a base deployment tool, maybe not, but it's quite useful if you've got a large number of parties who use different banks and IBANs and something like this to look after whether they are valid or whether and how the BIC and so on is defined.
Mm.
It follows the programming pattern we would like to call ensure. That means the parts with the question mark in front. We build a domain of it, and then we ask the database, is the content there? And if it is there, then use this. And if it is not there, then create it. It's a common pattern you already use when you are using Proteus and you want to have some idempotency. Yeah. That means a script which is able to run more than one time. You can run it many times, and it will do not change anything if there is no change inside.
I don't think this meets his question.
But it's okay.
So to give you this is not about validating data. Yeah. It's about putting valid data into the database. If you want the data validated, you can do this upfront.
Yeah, but it's only for putting the base implementation inside the database, and that if you merge from one software
So for those at the stream, the question was whether this could be used for migrating databases from other products. Well, it could be used, but I would expect the pre-processing and validating of the data to be a separate step up front, just from how I would do such a migration. I would always first validate and convert the data before I put it into the database.
Normally I would do so.
If you, if you jetzt fällt mir das englische Wort nicht ein. Wenn es mich beauftragst, if you would pay me to do this, I would do this the way I just described. Others may do different.
Do you mean that you bypass Tryton software and you
No.
write directly to the database?
No. From the technique, it's just using Proteus. Yeah. Everything else would be too complicated. So.
I just have a remark about the data generated. We are using from the start people from a show, a TV show that is called The Office. I don't know if you know this show, but it's quite funny. And that's it works well with an ERP because it's about The Office. But something that is interesting about this show is that it has been translated in France, in French, with the name of Le Bureau, I think. In German, the name was Das Büro, I think. And probably in other languages too. So maybe you were talking about having different languages. We could use that. I don't know, it's to be discussed of course, but why not? Yeah, for the English, too bad. They speak the language of the Americans and they kick you also.
Yeah, of course, whatever we put into this, which data, it's totally open. So my year, I think this is what I wanted you to present, is a small framework for doing so. So we get at least one step further into this direction, and the actual contents, of course, can be optimized.
Yeah. But we generate the demo data from a script, I guess you know it, from the Tryton tools, generate demo.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be, well, we have to find a way to specify the database by language, but it's doable.
Do you manage to generate dated historical data for the past? For example, here is a welcome database, which is the result of 1 year of operations, and you have invoices like in a demo.
I have not tried, but it should be possible. Okay, the trick might be if you want to have a booking date, or how it's called, being in the past too. So the invoice date should not be a problem. For other dates, it might not be possible. So there's a way to pass the context. So you might be able to disable some checks if the context allows this. And so maybe it's possible. Udo?
Maybe another way is to take a real database from a customer, which has real data inside, and then going field over field and fuzzing it. Fuzzing means you take, it's a Python library, it's called Faker. It fakes data. It has a lot of name in English, a lot of name in German, a lot of names in any language, and then you just go around and change the names in the database, and then you change the products. You anonymize any description field because it can have sensitive informations, notes or something like this, attachments, remove, and then you have a database. And then you dump the database and just let it evolve with Tryton, because you can always update it.
So my point is that restoring a database means that you are compatible with the environment which created the database, and it is most of the time a problem. The second point is that the beauty of the Tryton demo is that it generates activity the same way as a potential user would have generated it last year.
Yeah.
And the question is, are we able to mimic this kind of things if we provide this by CSVs or whatever, because it means that it has to be programmed. It cannot be just put flatly in a file.
So, as I said, it depends on whether Tryton itself allows creating this data with past dates. What's not a problem is creating fuzzy data. If we are talking about CSV, we of course can create fuzzy CSV data. Or talking about the declarative approach, we could implement a fuzzy function, so the data would look different. And whether we can go in the back would be Cedric should be able to answer this question, whether it's possible to force Tryton to create invoices which have created and paid a few months ago. So we should be able to do this here too. It's not implemented, or I did not try it yet. So.
The demo does it, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I know. Yeah.
Okay. I think we will continue this conversation later. Now we have to go on with Adrian de Goebel. Sorry. Adrian. Goebel.